I really don't know why I should have to be the one to say this, but a man was just on TV in a debate advocating for um, the most generous interpretation of Putin's motives. And he argued somewhat sensibly that America had felt their interests were threatened in Vietnam, and we went all out brutally to demolish the country. And that's just what happens with superpowers. Well, the truth is in Vietnam, we had a situation that we could construe as a threat. Okay, it wasn't a threat. There was no meaningful interpretation to it that you could call a threat. We felt that our interpretation of their culture was being undermined in editorial interpretation of their sovereign current affairs. Iraq, we claimed weapons of mass destruction were not credible. Plain and simple. So you have this superpower that's not credible. And trot comes this other superpower and says, well, we're not going to be credible either. You're supposed to admire them. Putin lied, mass troops at the borders, and invented a pretext, and here we go. Um, the idea that NATO was encroaching on them and yet wasn't in Ukraine, we'd rejected the application of the Ukrainians, was handled in a very sloppy fashion by the debate. Clearly, if Ukraine is going to join NATO and NATO is going to forcibly change, maybe even attempted to threaten Russia from the Ukraine, then they have to act before NATO gets in there. That's less sloppily managed. Now, I happen to agree that NATO wasn't threatening Russia, but it could, given the circumstances of prevailing winds of fascism in the United States. So there's a lot of blind spots and promises made but not kept. So we've all seen over the centuries how governments come and go, how wars become ghastly and out of hand, how European dictators operate, and how we were brought to a world war standstill by the atomic situation, which has become so boring that people are normalizing it. Nothing could turn back the clock, and yet it's never water under the bridge. We wasted and wasted and wasted opportunities not to waste and waste and waste. Now we're handing our children a contaminated planet without even being willing to help them. And who are we supposed to turn to? The marvels of two superpowers who refuse to be trustworthy. If even one of them would be trustworthy, can you imagine the difference in morale it would make around the world? If Russia could be trustworthy when America's not, people would say, rah, rah, Russia is trustworthy. Let's hear what they have to say. If America could be trustworthy when Russia isn't, people would say, rah, rah. At least America can be trustworthy. But they can't be. They're figments of the imagination. Nobody believes that those idiots thought they were weapons of mass destruction and were deceived. What kind of fool would think America was threatened by Nicaragua or Vietnam? Has nothing to do with it. They placed a paranoid delusion into spin and said, we know it's not true. We know it's not true. It's not true. Everybody who read the papers knew it wasn't true. But guess what? We want you to give us a license to act on it. And here comes Putin. He says, we're going to do it too. Neither side is credible. So what do we have to do to fix it? We have to ask them politely, would you reform your mentalities, please? Pretty please? Does it matter to you at all that innocent children were killed in the Ukraine? Does it matter to you at all that innocent children were killed in Nicaragua and Vietnam? Please reform. Or please step down and give power to somebody else. Hand your derby and your umbrella to somebody next in line who can do a better job. Oh my God, they say. Whatever you do, don't ask us to be trustworthy. Don't, no, no, not if you don't want. That's what's going to happen to you if you ask us to be trustworthy. And it's not that they're going to say that. What they're going to say is, nice, nice, we are trustworthy. And you get smacked. Ain't that something? So, you know, can China sit down with these folks and say, we're pretty big too. It's a multipolar situation. We are exercising, doing our level best to be trustworthy. If you lay off the gobbledygook about North Korea, we want to help them get through their terrible crisis. Show some sympathy for the fact that they have children too. Can you do that? Now, Mr. Putin, you know that we have come through communism for a long time too. We want the best for one another. We want to show the world that we can be trustworthy. And we want to help America find its balance so it can be trustworthy too. And then China can go to the United States and say, we want to be trustworthy. We just had a very good conversation with Putin, insisting that it was possible for the superpowers to become trustworthy and win the hearts legitimately of the people of the world. And Washington, D.C. would say, hey, that sounds like a really fine idea. We're a little bit tired of not being trustworthy too. We're tired of taxing and spending and taxing and spending on waste that can only be used to destroy. We care about our children's future, and we care about your children's futures. Together, we can make a change to a sustainable living planet. Wow, that's child's play. Any elementary school child now knows that that's what we want from the superpowers, but no, the superpowers insist on never being trustworthy. It's against the national security interest. No, son. No, son. How dare you imply we aren't trustworthy? Weapons of mass destruction. Figments of Nazism from the Ukraine. Figments of weapons of mass destruction. Why those locusts in Nicaragua who are breeding like rabbits? Why those minions of neo-Nazism who are flocking with their bandera tattoos? Lose it. People in power, from what I've seen, have the potential to be better than that. What do they need these figments of their paranoid fantasies? And I don't even believe they entertain them. I think the message is if we can construe a threat, that's where our, gains go cracker. You know what I'm saying? And the admiring world just sits there in awe at the power of reason and responsibility in evidence.